On this week's episode of the Crowdfunding Nerds, we talk about saying no. We discuss the topics of signal versus noise, scheduling, scope creep, and goal setting. Let's get into it. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by Hero Time Manufacturing. That is Hero Time, the numeral 1.com. Hirsch Gleck has been a regular on our podcast. We highly recommend his services. He is a man of integrity. Hero Time, they can make anything. They've got competitive pricing, and they even do game prototypes. So make sure to check out Hero Time, numeral1.com. A link is in the show notes. And if you use the code Crowdfunding Nerds 101, you can get a 3% discount on your production through them. Let's get back into the episode.
Game begin.
Let's go.
Bring your pretty face to my ad.
Amazing.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I'm your host, Andrew Lowen, and I'm joined as almost always by Sean. And today we've got an interesting topic about saying no. And the fallout, the fallout that can happen when you say yes. And in particular for me this week, actually, I had some of that fallout kind of come to a head, and I just wish somebody gave me this advice beforehand. So I guess I could kind of explain myself, but so I in the other side of our business, so we do a lot of digital marketing for Facebook ads. We run ads for Kickstarter campaigns and GameFound campaigns, and we do a lot of e-commerce and whatnot. But there's the other side of our business with which Richard handles, which is SEO marketing for small businesses. So for those of you that don't know what that is, we help small businesses achieve top rankings on Google, and usually they're service-based businesses, not always, but and there are, in that side of the business, the first 6 months is very critical, because when a client gets results and they get phone calls that, from people that say, "Oh, I found you on the internet," and whatnot, that pretty much secures our, the monthly investment that they make. They realize as a client that that's a good investment, and then they keep making it. So as long as we communicate and deliver results, we get, we hold clients for years. I mean, I have clients from, 2013 when I started this service. We still have a number of clients that I acquired in that year. And so there are, so what I find is usually within the first 6 months, that's when, we typically tell people, like, if it's a new website or if it's highly established, we give people a range of time that it takes to rank and whatnot. I'll try not to belabor this point too long for all of you guys. I know you want to listen to this for marketing advice and whatnot, but bear with me. So, if something goes wrong within the first 6 months, that is when that they will quit, because there are two very important factors that keep clients in that initial time frame. First one is communication and trust. I guess I'm blending those together. But their trust for us, there are a lot of signals that amalgamate into, do I trust this company or not? And at first they're like, well, you really have to make a choice to trust someone. And you can do all the research you want, and you can ask questions and get answers and gather information. But at a certain point, you need to make a decision, and that decision is made. Number one, do I feel like this company can actually do what they say? Do they have case studies? Do they have other things like that? Do they have a process they can explain to me and whatnot? Does all that make sense? And number two, do I trust what they're saying is true? Do I trust this person is oftentimes what I hear, rather than do I trust this company, which, by the way, does matter very much in Kickstarter. Do your backers or prospective backers trust you? That's why, I love building emails for email marketing and whatnot, because you can build that trust rather than saying, look at this product, isn't it so cool? You can actually say, look at this product, isn't it so cool? And by the way, there's a company behind it and a person behind it that you can trust to actually follow through and deliver, right? So now the second, obviously, in this, the second part of this equation that keeps clients is our results. And in the first 6 months, especially with a new website, the results build. Like if you go from page 100 or even unranked on Google to page 2, you don't make any money because nobody goes to page 2 on Google. But after, even though I can show reports that'll say, oh, look at this as, you're ranking up, you were ranked 100, now you're ranked 11. It doesn't matter in the end if they don't get phone calls. So the first 6 months, it's really key to build them into a position where they can either get phone calls or where they see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, okay, you are rank 5 for a very important keyword, and we're in month, 5 or 4 or whatever. The person is like, okay, well, I really need to see where this is going to translate into money, but it looks like we're going to get there. And that's, really important. But then by month 6, you really need to have calls coming in as well, because no matter how much they like you and how much they trust you, if it's not translating into business, they're not a charity. They can't just keep paying money for something that's not delivering results, right?
Mhm.
So for us, the key has always been on that side of the business. It's always been to do great work every single month, report on that work, and deliver those results within a 6-month time frame. And so we actually will elect we actually won't even take a client on if they're not prepared to go the distance with us. And if we don't think that we can provide the results, then I don't think that, then we don't take them on. And we've turned many clients down for that over the years. So now here I am in this situation this week where I ended up missing a meeting with a client on the SEO marketing side because my whole week has just been chaos, and my day fell apart, and I ended up missing a meeting because I looked at my calendar. I should have looked at my calendar like an hour before, but I noticed I was an hour late to a meeting. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just felt horrible. And and then I, contacted the client, got them to meet right away, and, the next day, and they were upset. I had to do some damage control. But I shouldn't have ever had that meeting to begin with. And I had that meeting was, the reason I had that meeting was because I felt like we were in month 4 of marketing, and this company was, they're investing a lot, like $1,000 a month into marketing, and we're getting them there, but they were kind of getting antsy. They were feeling like, well, that's usually what clients do. Usually, if you tell them 6 months, they start getting antsy at like 4 months. Like, am I going to get any calls? Am I going to get any deals? And so we just started to rank them at the top of Google. Just like they were ranked 1 for like 2 or 3 keywords. They were ranked 5 or 6 for like the big breadwinning keywords. And we're really close, but they were getting really antsy. And so me and my wisdom, I'm like, well, let me show extra value to these clients to make sure that they know that they're being taken care of. And I actually think that was the thing that was kind of like the demise of the relationship, because I am so busy. I'm so crazy busy with everything that we have going on. Like my priorities are to our existing clients that we're serving, making sure that all the work gets done, making sure the results are coming in, both on the Crowdfunding Nerds marketing side and the Next Level Web, like SEO marketing side of the business. And then I have Deliverance, which is a Kickstarter campaign that we ran. We're about a month from going to manufacturing right now, and so everything is chaotic there. A lot of responsibility, a lot of things to do. We have to make sure that all of the proofreading is done, that everything is balanced, that, before we actually hit print and are no longer able to make any changes. I have 7 children, and I have other responsibilities, church and jujitsu.
Yeah.
Right. So here I am saying, this client was like, he expressed that he really wished that he could talk to us or somebody about his ideas for his target customer. He really wants to revamp his website so that it does a better job talking to those people. And I'm like, I know how to do that. I'm very good at that. And so I thought I will do this to provide extra value to this client so that they will, you know, that they'll hang on for just 2 more months and get that little last, bit of kind of
Mileage.
I'll get them across the finish line. Yeah. And and I don't know if we're going to make it. So it's because of my, generally, I think it's because I missed the meeting, but also because I feel like I probably could have been much more focused in this process. If I actually was involved and I'm doing everything that I need to do, I could have probably done this a lot faster. But I just have so much going on, you know? And so I should never have volunteered to do that. And I just was kind of reflecting on this, with, this week as a creator. And, it's all about guarding your time. And there's this concept that really made a lot of sense to me, called the signal and the noise, which I'd love to kind of get into. But first, what do you think about all this, Sean?
Well, it reminds me of, I've got this on my brain because we're currently marketing Avatar because of the Magic the Gathering push. So, but it reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but Aang, the main character, has a friend
Oh
called
yeah,
Boomy.
I've watched the show
uh,
many times.
and he gets captured, and then he, just does nothing, and then he waits for this eclipse to come and says, "That's it," and then he kind of just, he recaptures his entire city as like a one-man army, and it's just like this idea of doing nothing. That was his plan. I'm just going to do nothing. I'm just going to wait for the right time to strike, and sometimes doing nothing is doing something. So for whatever reason, just reminded me of that. Just it'd probably be better if you just had done nothing than trying to intervene and do it poorly.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely something that taught me a real lesson. Number two, well, I guess first lesson obviously is to guard my time and do a better job, like prioritizing and saying what are these the top priorities and how shall I organize them. Sometimes it's a lot easier just to wake up every day and see what life has in store for you and just embrace whatever's in front of you that day. But that's not really how you make long-term gain in life or business, right? You have to kind of be proactive about things. So, um, there's a lot of value in stopping and thinking about what you want to do. And so the concept of, well, I guess, this, there are other lessons we can come back to, but the concept of the signal and the noise comes from, I believe it's Kevin O'Leary, the businessman from Shark Tank. He was talking, and I saw this on like a YouTube short or something like that. He talked about, um, Steve Jobs and how he really hated working for Steve Jobs, but because Steve Jobs is a real jerk, but that Steve Jobs, he made more money working for him. And he said the thing that was amazing about Steve Jobs was that he, so he went into this concept of the signal and the noise. He said that he always focused on the signal. He devoted, like 99% of his time to signal, which, and then he explained what signal was. So the signal and the noise are the two things that you can pay attention to as a business owner or as a, in life. He said that he defines the signal as the three most important tasks that you need to complete within the next 18 hours. That is signal. Everything else is noise. And he said that, Steve Jobs did better than anyone in the world. What he did better than anyone in the world was focus on the signal. And he said that, he actually commented the only person who does a better job than Steve Jobs is Elon Musk. He said Elon Musk is 100% signal, 0% noise. This kind of reminds me of the Eisenhower matrix. But what do you think about that concept of the
Do we
signal
want to
and
take
the
the red
noise?
pill or the blue pill? It reminds me of my sort of morning ritual, so to speak. Is I always try to, and sometimes I don't do it, but I try to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes before I even open up my emails, even do anything. I plan my day, and I find that makes me so much more productive. It's just spending 5 minutes planning my day, and I use Google Tasks for this because it's actually quite convenient because it integrates with email on Gmail, which is the system we use. and I split my day into basically morning and afternoon. What needs to be done in the morning, so this would be all my urgent stuff. Try to get that done as soon as possible, and then anything that's less urgent, I put in the afternoon. And then if there's anything left over, I just move it to the next day. So I have like these different buckets, and I just, okay, that's for tomorrow. Or I say, okay, that's not even, I can do that on Thursday or Friday. I can do it near the end of the week, and I kind of just push it to the end of the week, and I review that every day. So I go and say, okay, what was the stuff I put in yesterday's bucket, and then I kind of put it on my morning or afternoon pile. And then as I complete those tasks, I just check them off on Google Tasks. You just push the button and it disappears. And I find that is a very useful tool to staying on top of everything, because uh, yeah, we run so many different things, and next level web, crowdfunding nerds, low end games, that you really have to be organized. Otherwise, it can snowball on you pretty quickly. Or you can find that you're just kind of mulling around all day if you're not disciplined, and you don't have like a laser point focus. You're like, what did I do today? Like, I just felt like I answered emails all day and I never really got anything meaningfully done. So
Yeah.
I find that very helpful, just to essentially set up a schedule and set goals. So I have a time limit to get this done, and I have to get it done in the morning. Otherwise, it's just going to be pushed back, and it's going to ruin the entire day and the entire schedule. So I find that's very helpful to kind of keep me grounded. And usually what I find is when I get to a stage where I'm finding it challenging to reply to emails. It's taking me a day. I'm delayed, because I like to reply to emails same day. But if I'm like a day behind replying to emails, like, okay, it's usually a sign that I've taken on too much and I need to start saying no to your original point. So that's my kind of litmus test. Am I taking on too much? Because if I can't respond to emails, I have too many clients, and I need to either delegate to the rest of the team, or just say no to kind of the extra stuff that I've been doing.
Hey, crowdfunding nerds, if you're looking for an awesome fulfillment partner for US shipping, you should really consider Bridge Distribution and Fulfillment. I personally use them. I've used them for multiple projects. They do such a great job. They also can fulfill Amazon orders and get you prepped for Amazon and their warehousing team. I have been so happy using Bridge Distribution. I'm really proud that they're sponsoring us. If you reach out, bridgedist.com, that's bridgedist.com, let them know we sent you. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, I think that there are certain classifications of things that I would say are more dangerous to say yes to. One thing that I will oftentimes, if we have a client that comes in, if we internally are like, hey, we're really full, and like right now is a very busy time for marketing. There's a ton of people that are trying to get in before the Thanksgiving holiday and shopping season for crowdfunding in particular. And then, it kind of transitions to trying to sell stuff, which is actually a rather short holiday season compared to normal, by dates. You have like something like 35 days before Christmas when you get to Thanksgiving. Which is why my lights are going up like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, by the way. We're one of those people. So I think that, it's just a very busy time. But then if someone else comes in and is like, hey, can you do this? Can you work with me? The answer is always yes, because we have a system that we can bring people in and help them kind of get acclimated, as long as we have the right time, the right amount of time. Now, if things deviate from the system, so if somebody's like, hey, I just launched yesterday, can you get ads up for me tomorrow or today? That is something that can actually really make us look bad when we're busy. If we are already busy, we take on one extra thing. It's like the dam, gets a crack in it because of this extra body of water that we're just suddenly dropping right in front of the dam. Now, if we were to take somebody on that's like, yeah, I want to launch in 3 months. Oh, that's no problem. Like that, we have a system for that. We have people that can handle that, as long as the ads don't, crash onto someone's plate that's already managing 20 accounts, and suddenly has to prioritize this over all of those 20. We get the thing done for the one person, and then we fall, a day or behind for 20 others in a row. That is where you start to really suffer. And so I kind of wanted to explore on this podcast the types of things that you should say no to and why, and the types of things that if you're busy, busy people get things done. And if you say yes as a busy person, like when is it okay, and when should you recognize like you need to say no to this, or you need to figure this out. So that's really what I've been pondering this week. And so I would say, one thing that really helps me is, when I can say yes to something is delegation. You brought it up already. The ability to delegate to others really, really helps. I mean, if I can just, like, for example, taking on a new client for SEO marketing, I will have to talk to that person. I'll have to get them started. I'll do the, marketing proposal. I'll have Richard help with the research and, to see if we can take the client on, or if they're, what position their website's currently ranking in and all that. And then I'm able to hand it to Richard, who that's what he does, like, on a regular basis. I just have to make sure to not hand something to Richard that's like, okay, it's, right now it's, early October when we're, or mid October when we're recording this. But, let's say at the end of September, I'm like, all right, I bring a new client in, it's September 25th. We do things on a monthly basis on that side where it's like, okay, September marketing needs to be started by the beginning of the month and finished by the end. We'll deliver all the reports of what it is that we did the beginning of the following month. But if I were to bring in a client and be like, all right, Richard, we need to have this client's September marketing finished, but we only have 5 days to do it. That is a deviation that is actually contrary to the way that we set our system up. So if I sign somebody up for marketing on, like, let's say September 20th, what I do now is I say, your first month of marketing is technically going to be October, but we'll get started a little bit early. So you're just going to get a little bit of extra value, but your true first month is going to be 10 days from now. And clients really appreciate that. They're like, oh, cool. It's now a benefit that no longer causes this crazy amount of stress on the team. So that's one example of why delegation is so powerful. How do you, how do you recover from saying yes to things through delegation? Did anything come to mind?
Well, I'm always reminded of the expression that I heard long time ago, and it was "delegate or die," and I've taken that to heart, because you can kind of overwork and then you get sick, and then everything starts falling apart off the wheels. In terms of, you're saying when to say no, I think you also have to keep in mind that sometimes something that sounds like a good idea, but then it inevitably leads to a scope creep. So this happened to me actually last week. A client asked for a report. It's like, yeah, sure, no problem, because they're already paying for a report. So I just kind of did a bit of an extra report. It's just as a little add-on. But then they came back to, oh, great, that was wonderful. Can you do it a little bit? As it starts becoming like this, just a little bit more, a little bit more. And these were quite complex reports, looking through a lot of data. And it was interesting for me because it helped me answer some questions. So one thing I was examining was, have we seen an increase in CPMs over 5 years, for example? So I looked at this client's account, and their CPM actually had increased. It actually had doubled. So that's one reason why they're seeing maybe a performance decrease. But then I actually I was like, that's a really interesting question. I should look at all these other accounts. So that's what I did. I did look at these other accounts, so I could, in my report say, I've looked at other accounts and they haven't had this type of problem. So there might be a reason to that. But that's an example where it's like, yeah, sure, I'll do this small little thing, and then it kind of leads to scope creep. Now, it did provide some interesting information for me that is useful across industries and cross platforms and things. But it's just reminded me to be careful of what I say yes to, because you can get the scope creep. And it did sort of slow me down last week, and I've caught up, but it did kind of, it was an extra thing I had to do on a week that was pretty busy to begin with.
Yeah. There are problems that sometimes people run into where they are, we call it micromanaging, where people will do things themselves that they could have others do instead. One of, really the whole reason that we exist as a company for crowdfunders is because, yes, we have expertise in marketing, but just to be able to hand off the marketing and say, okay, somebody is doing that for me, it's being handled. I can tell you, as a publisher myself, having you work on the marketing for Deliverance is such a nice breath of fresh air, knowing that it's getting done. and not having to constantly look at it and just, it's another thing that I have, of all people, I built this company, so I sure have expertise, but I can delegate. That's something that I can delegate. And by holding on to that, it's actually kind of, or let's say if I were to check in with you all the time, be like, hey, can you get me a custom report or whatever? Then that's not only causing pressure where it doesn't need to be. It's micromanaging, it's, other things like that. But it's nice to be able to take something entirely off my plate. And I think that some people tend to have problems, especially when they're newer in business. They tend to have problems with control, where they need to have control all the time. And if that's you listening to this, you've got to delegate to other people, even if it's not going to be done as well as you doing it. So for me, I'm like, I'm sure that if I really put my mind to deliverance marketing in this case, that I could do better than you. But if you can get like 90% to where I would get, then I think that that's worth it to delegate. And frankly, I think that you do a better job than me in a lot of ways, because I'm, as a creator, I'm so close to the project that it's hard to see sometimes, as the adage goes, it's hard to see the forest through the trees in front of me, and because I'm like in the thick of it, doing all the work, changing text and proofreading and all this stuff, right? So I think that's a lesson that people can pull, is like, delegate things. And really, when I say delegate, I mean entrust things to other people. There's like an analogy of like, everybody's got a bus that they're driving. So you're the driver of the bus. You determine where it goes, the bus being your business, or, whatever. But you need to get the right people in the right seats on the bus. So there's the marketing seat. You need to have the right person or the right company in that seat. You've got, your operations and your taxes and accounting and all sorts of other things, for publishing business. It's game development and design, it's art, it's graphic design, and all sorts of other things like that. Who's going to proofread your stuff, the rule book, make sure that there's no spelling errors and whatnot, but the I think that that's a really important concept that I can't overstate. I feel like it's you just need the right people to be able to delegate to. And in some cases, when you don't have the right person, when it's just you, like when I started this company back in, I don't know, 2009, actually, I guess we are now, it's 16 years since I founded our company. But since I started, I had nobody at the time, nobody to delegate to. It was just me. I didn't have tons and tons of clients. I wasn't super busy. I was spending at least half my time hunting for business, so that I could keep the roof over my head. It's a hard thing to start a business, but I didn't have the ability to delegate. So I think that's where I think the next concept comes from, is guard your time. When it's your personal time and you can't delegate, you have to guard your time. And I think that this is especially true when, like in my situation right now, and yours too, Sean, with the family. You've got kids and responsibilities. And I find that whenever I say yes to a friend, let's say they're like, hey, you want to meet for lunch, or you want to come over for a game night or whatever, and I say yes, that's something that eventually trickles down and impacts the most important things, work and family. So, when I take 2 hours away from my family, then or I'm sorry, from my work, the work, I leave during the middle of the day, go have lunch with somebody. I can do that maybe like once a week if I had to. Sometimes that, even once a week, that's asking a lot of me right now in my situation. But work still needs to get done. So what ends up suffering in the end is, hey, if I've got to work, I've got to work. 7 at night, I've got to work 2-3 hours. My wife understands. My wife puts the kids to bed on her own, eventually hangs out on her own, waiting for me to be done. I come up at 10 p.m. and, I'm super tired and we need to go to bed and start the next day. In the end, the 2 hours that I spent or whatever time I spent for lunch actually took 2 hours from my family at the end of the day because work needed to get done. I didn't want to disappoint my clients, but by saying yes to a friend, I was actually saying no to my wife and children. And was that a trade I was willing to make? Oftentimes it's no, I wasn't willing to make that trade. However, I didn't think about the consequences. And so that's why, I bring up the concept of guarding your time.
Yeah, and I think there's also ways where you can find time if you just cut out certain things. Like I've started to reduce my sleep from 8 hours to 6 hours, and I find that that's all I need. I don't need any more sleep, and I've become so much more productive because I've just added 2 hours to my day. So by the time the kids have got up, I've done 2 hours of work, and it's really changed my sort of dynamic of getting things done, and it's just been great. So that's another thing where it's like if you're going to take on more responsibilities, then there might be other areas. It might mean you know yeah, saying no to that you know board game. It's actually on. It's one reason why because at Crowdfunding Nerds we've got lots of game developers. Everyone's got a project or something, and there's a lot of people who, and I'd love to do more play testing and help them out. And it's something I'd love to do, and especially helping the team, with their personal projects and making sure that they thrive. But I find I often have to say no to those things because the time, it's usually on a Friday afternoon that these things want to be done, and that's usually when I'm trying to wrap things up before the weekend. Um, or it's going to have to, as you said, push into some family time or something, which is fine as long as I can schedule that and let everyone know and kind of set things up. But that's often why I've had to say no to those types of things, even though I'd love to do it. It makes it difficult. But I completely understand what you mean. If you take things on, it just kind of knocks everything out of order and out of place, which can be very challenging.
Yep. Yeah. I'll say there's so like we go to our church puts this thing on like every Wednesday night, and it's some kind of like to give some context and background, we have a bunch of old ladies at our church that cook like the best food ever made. They are so good, and there's a commercial kitchen at the church, and they leverage it. Like they do this volunteer led breakfast every Sunday. It's crazy, dude. Like it's really good food and all like homemade from, these ladies' recipes that have been passed down for generations and all that. It's like I feel very spoiled, But when I get to go to the breakfast, it's about an hour before church, the service begins. But they also do this thing on Wednesday night where it's some kind of like Bible study event that's new, and it's meant to get families together and whatnot. But my life is busy, and so adding a weekly commitment. So they're asking me to come, and they're telling me we're making spaghetti for the kids, and we're doing like they'll do stuff like lamb and mashed potato. Like it's like Thanksgiving dinner level of quality, and it's like they're just trying to convince me to go. And I'm like, man, if I add one more weekly commitment to my schedule, I am not gonna have any time for myself, like family and the everything like that. We're just gonna be running around doing things that will make other people happy. And that is going to cause fallout in my life. And so, there are like we've got, the pastors asking us like, hey, you want to come? We've got the head lady that runs the food at the church. She's like giving me all the reasons why my kids are gonna love it. And oh, you don't have to arrive early, you can arrive at like 6:45, get out by like 8 o'clock. And it's like, I'm just trying to say no without having to be like, I put my foot down, I say no, because I don't like talking that way to people. And then also I, have to see them every single week. And it's like, how do I, creatively say, oh, well, I'll think about it. Or, oh, well, I prayed and decided after much, much deliberation that this is not right for me at this time. Like, what do I say? I'm just trying to like not have another weekly commitment. At the end of the day, the goal is to have to be focused and concentrated in life, and just doing other things because people ask you to do them is, I mean, it's it's not a good enough reason on its own, right? So I've found over time, like, simplifying life, especially regular routine commitments, those things should be highly considered, right?
Hmm. I was actually just looking this afternoon of taking my son to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I was looking at gyms, and I was like, it's really irritating because a lot of the sessions, they split children and adults, and I really need something where I can do it with my son, so I don't have to be sitting around wasting an hour whilst he does this, then I have to drive 20 minutes back home, whatever.
Mhm.
I need something that we could both do together, so I can leverage that time optimally, and then we can leave together. But which is challenging. Not many of them do that. So I've had to like reach out and say, hey, do you have any kind of like mixed classes? Otherwise, I'm just not going to be able to do it because I can't, send him and then hang around and then, do another night myself. It's just, that's too much of a commitment just for, something I can't just use to stay in shape and
Yep.
be able to choke fools.
Yeah, dude. You got infected with the bug, which is the love of choking enemies, right?
Yeah.
So that's
It's
awesome.
very,
Yeah, for
it's very sweaty stuff.
definitely. Yep. For those that don't know, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and when Sean and I met up for the first time, Sean is like, you seem like a really scrappy dude, and I don't know why I thought you'd be like 5 feet tall in real life or whatever, because Sarah's so small, you look like, giant, but I thought Sarah was like 3 feet tall and you'd be like 5. And so anyway, you're like as tall as me, and so when we get to uh, the convention in Wisconsin and actually met each other in real life for the first time like a month ago, I was like, I made a commitment to go to a gym, a jujitsu gym, and I was like, hey, anybody else want to come? You all can. And no, everyone else was like, no, thank you. And you were just like, me, let's do this. That was super fun. So you're, I think you'll have a lot of fun. Like when you find the right gym.
Yeah,
First
then
gym I
like
ever went to had classes at the same time, kid classes in one area and adult classes in another at the same time. It was really cool. So but that is tough to find, especially in Ireland where, it's not like there's a whole lot
smaller.
of space, Yeah.
Yeah, it was just smaller population, so they don't probably can't cater to something so specific.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So, yeah, so weekly commitments, I find like one of the solutions for me is simplifying my life. So, I'll give you an example that actually hit real close to home for me. Um, when I think about what do I do in life? What are the things that I care about? I think five major things. I've got my family, I've got, God, I've got my work. Then I have deliverance, which is the publishing business and games and whatnot, and I've got jujitsu. Those are the five things that I do. And if you want to get to know me, find a way to do one of those five things. Either be a family member of mine, or play
can you
games,
adopt me?
or yeah. I have enough children that if you slipped in, I might not even notice. Um, so it's one of those things that whenever somebody's like, oh, we have to hang out, the first thing I'll do is be like, dude, you want to come to jujitsu? Because that I'm going to be there anyway. So I'm kind of leveraging my time and getting to hang out, and it's a fun thing. Or like, if I go to a convention, or if another local event that I'm already planning to go to with like a Board Game Geek, runs a convention every November and every spring in Dallas. And it's like 4 hours away. I will invite like my local friends to go there. And it's
Mm.
like, you and I, Sean, you and I have like over 10 children combined. And it's like, it's a lot.
We're
So
gonna
like,
repopulate the earth
seriously.
with nerds.
Yeah, dude. So even if we lived right next to each other, we may just see each other once every 6 months. Who knows? It's like me. Yeah, maybe we'd invite you over for dinner or whatever, and every once in a while. But like that's a serious commitment that we couldn't do like every week, or I would like fall apart maybe, right? And so it's like, what are ways that I can kind of bring people along and involve them in things that I care about, and that I'm doing. So it's one of the ways that I will, reduce the amount of stress that committing to people or to trying to see people will have on my life. Another thing that's probably more practical for everybody is stack your schedule and do related things. If you have to drive into town, then do more than one thing when you get there, right? So I don't know. Would you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, well, you do have a lot of pressure from folks. It's the same in my church, and especially the culture here in Northern Ireland. The midweek meeting, the Wednesday meeting, is kind of seen as like serious Christians go to that, and the reason is because I suppose back in the good olden days, everyone was part of the Anglican Church, and it was the state church, so everyone had to go on Sunday to church, and if you didn't like the Common Book of Prayer, which a lot of people didn't, particularly the Puritans, they would meet on Wednesdays and have their kind of real church service. So the kind of real church service was on the Wednesday, and then all the normies went to the Sunday service. So that's how the Wednesday night meeting became, in some traditions of Christianity, is seen as like the kind of where the serious Christians go. But I try to commit to go to the Wednesday night meetings when I can. Usually it's every other week, but it's difficult. It's difficult to get out, especially when you've got lots of kids and lots of responsibilities and things to do. But again, it's one of those things you have to plan for in advance and just stick to schedule.
Right. It's like, what you have to ask yourself, what things do I value most? And I find one thing that it's like a false, what do I, how would you say it? It's something that you shouldn't value, but tends to get overvalued and becomes a major part of the decisions that a lot of people make, which is how other people see them. So how others see me, if I go to this, like for example, like the Wednesday night thing, if I go to the Wednesday night church service, then then other people will like that. They'll be approving of doing that. And my stock will increase in their minds. And I've fallen victim, if you call it that, victim,
Your
maybe
reputation
not the
will
right word.
increase.
Yeah.
Become honored, then revered.
That's right. And then exalted, eventually I just want to be exalted with every faction. So, the church faction right now, I'm neutral, not hated anymore, but, so yeah, I mean, I could do a whole lot of other things. And, it's so funny because like these ladies will be like, all the old ladies at the church will gush over my wife being like, oh my goodness, your kids are so good and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know how you do it. And then, my wife's like, oh yeah, huh, cool. And then at the next breath, they're like, and you need to do this thing and that thing. You got to come Wednesday and you got to come Friday. And oh, there's a vigil on Saturday. And oh, there's service on Sunday. Don't forget breakfast and Sunday school on Sunday as well. We're just like, we can't do any of that. And they're just like, I don't understand why. It's like, do you want kids that are nightmares that have no, relationship with their parents? Like, we'll go,
Well,
but
I
our
think
kids will be
you
nightmares.
also homeschool, right? And that's a big commitment as well.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of time and energy. So yeah, I understand. Similar boat.
Yeah. It's like, well, again, it comes back to what do you value? And I think that sometimes you have to just have a serious conversation with yourself. And other areas that so one of the things I want to bring up and add into this discussion is me time. That's a big, I mean, that's like, really in the last maybe 30 years or something, that's really become like a thing. And it's become a very big thing in the last, really since the rise of video games and whatnot, where people want to just spend time playing games. There's nothing wrong with gaming. I mean, there's probably something wrong with gaming at the level that I gamed, like 8-9 hours a day, for every single day, 7 days a week, twice that on Sundays and Saturdays, it's probably a little too much. It's hard to do other things, but I was really good at World of Warcraft or at Elder Scrolls Online or you name it, whatever game I was playing at the time, League of Legends, I don't know. So Hearthstone. But if you want to be good at things that matter, I think sometimes
it would be good at like real things.
yeah, sometimes, me time is actually something that majorly holds you back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Discipline. Yeah. Something I was thinking about, your life is really just, you have a certain amount of time. And for you to use your time poorly is really to, in a way, hate your life or to kind of have a self-inflicted wound. if you're not optimizing your time well, it's going to have a knock-on effect on so many other areas of your life. And I find a lot of, especially, I love playing games, but there is certainly an element where you can play too many games and it starts impacting other areas of your life, or that could just fall into anything that you kind of are overemphasizing. And it's really important to kind of think very intentionally of how you're using your time. I don't get much me time, to be honest. I think as as a dad with young children, it's really rare, and you have a lot of duties and just obligations that you have to meet. But it is something that I think is important. I find I can the only way I can get me time is just not sleeping. Just don't sleep as much. Cut out sleep, get that extra 2 hours, and I can do stuff before anyone wakes up, and that's about the only time of the day which has been helpful. I think it's really helped me stay disciplined and to optimize my time. But sometimes it's just cutting things out. Are you doom scrolling at 8 o'clock in the evening on your phone? Well, maybe just make a commitment to put your phone away past 8 o'clock or something, and then you don't fall into that temptation. Or you just say, I'm going to schedule 30 minutes of reading, and I'm just going to read, and that's your me time. So
what was really interesting is going back to World of Warcraft, I was one of the highest rated arena players in the world. Not to brag. No, it's totally a humble brag, hashtag humble brag.
And then I was defeating Wreckful in arena.
With
one hand.
We played against a Wreckful. I played on the first arena partner that I hit Gladiator with ended up winning the BlizzCon tournament, and the next that I played ended up taking another that I played with ended up taking third the following year, and it was a Zillia and Ice Fox, if anybody cares. 0 people care probably. But the point that I wanted to make was I would practice. I remember my future wife was my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, hey, honey, I gotta be home at 4 o'clock. I'm tapping my watch right now. I have a practice scheduled, and I have to be there. I
gotta play arena.
Yeah. Excuse me. Actually, I have to be home. But I put that time in. It was like a 2-hour practice session, and it was every day we would focus and we would do really well. And I remember we achieved the height that I achieved was ranked 7 in the US and ranked 33 in the world, by MMR rating. And it was, and that was on my 2v2 team. And I remember actually at that time, I played less World of Warcraft than any other time. It was just, I was wrestling in college. I was, obviously going to college and trying to do well. And I had other commitments. I had a girlfriend. I had, friends and that wanted to go out and do things. And, being a college kid, it's it's a serious responsibility. Fun is serious responsibility. But this was a goal that I had. I wanted to be the absolute best I could. And so I set aside time, and Facebook was a thing, but there were other things that kind of were that dopamine hit, like playing games and whatnot, that I would actually turn off. I'm like, I'm not playing any other games. I'm playing World of Warcraft between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. And then we are, running, we have a 4-hour block on Friday night, 4-hour block on Saturday. And that's kind of what my schedule was. And it became very businesslike, and I became better at the game than any other time ever.
Mm-hmm.
I just was sharper and more capable, and I won a lot. And that was because we really worked for it. I felt like that even in World of Warcraft, there were a lot of people that played a lot, but they did. I remember I would spend some nights jumping in Ironforge. There are these this pattern on the floor of the city of Ironforge, and I'm jumping and in between the squares and whatnot. And I will spend sometimes 30 minutes doing that while talking to people and just, kind of shooting the breeze and wasting time. What did I do in that 30 minutes? Nothing. But, when it's concentrated and focused and purposeful time, it's immediately queue up for arena. I'll jump the dots while I'm waiting. But oftentimes I have to do other things to to prepare for that or whatever. And it's just like being focused even when you're playing. I think there's value in focus.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah,
So how would we
I
apply
remember
this to like,
I
go
used
ahead,
to
go ahead.
I used to play WoW with my brother. We had different accounts, but I remember it kind of came out when I was a senior in high school and he had finished, so he was like looking for work, whatever. But he'd basically be playing WoW all day, looking for work, and I'd come back and I'd be like, "So what have you done? You spent the whole day playing WoW," and it's like done nothing. I was like, "How are you so bad at this game? Like if I spent the entire day playing WoW, I'd be like so much further than you."
Yeah.
It's like I spent like 3 hours trying to find a group and it broke apart. It's like, oh wow, gosh, you're just terrible at this game. So like I played less, but I was like further ahead in the game, and like I had better
Yeah.
gear, and I was like more experienced. And I don't know, it just he didn't seem to, I don't know, get
That's
good at the
funny.
game.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot of people and the mentality that they have in life. They just kind of let life happen to them. And I think as business owners or as entrepreneurial people, you have to take life, um, you know, I don't know how a nice way to say it, but you have to take life by storm. You have to be intentional, I
Like
guess,
grab
is
the
the intent.
bull by the horns is the
There you
expression,
go.
maybe.
By the horns. I was thinking a different part, but yeah, the horns is a good one. So yeah, I think that it's very easy to fall prey to indifference and apathy and just going with the flow. I think that successful business people are going to be very intentional and active with their time, and to me, that is a uh, um, a meaningful difference maker. When I look to hire somebody, I want to see something that they did that they stuck with and did a good job at it. Anything. You can show me
Hmm.
any single thing. One of the biggest things I look at is like, did they wrestle like on their resume? Like I'm looking like, were they a wrestler? Well, if they were, did they wrestle all 4 years of high school or did they do college? Or and then even then is like, did they win? Like what did they win anything or whatever? If it's baseball, like I don't want the worst baseball player on the team. Like I want the best one because that indicates that they try hard, that they're
Hmm.
intentional with their time and their practicing or whatever. I'm just using sports as an analogy, but like anything. And actually, we talked to Caleb Grace a couple of weeks ago, and he is working for Fantasy Flight Games as a senior game designer, working his dream job. And he got that job because he managed to have success in what was
Magic the
it, like the
Gathering.
Star Trek deck building or the Star Trek game,
Yeah,
CCG.
some type of tournament that he won. I was
Yeah,
thinking it
he
was
ended
Magic
up
the Gathering. He
No, I
won.
think it was like a Star Trek
Okay.
thing or whatever, but he ended up winning worlds and taking second, and it was it showed that he could be a good game player. So if
Hmm.
you can be a good gamer and theory craft like a good deck and whatever and go through that whole process, then your likelihood of being able to be a game designer for a card game is exceedingly high.
Hmm.
So I think that's something that we could all probably benefit from, is just that being more intentional about what it is that we're doing. Why am I doing this
Yeah.
right now? How can I finish efficiently? How can I do it the absolute best I possibly can and then move on? So
I find having a goal, as you said, you have a goal and you can, it really grounds you, because then everything that you do starts to be filtered through that goal. So let's say you find yourself, watching 20 minutes of YouTube. It's like, well, I just wasted 20 minutes. What am I doing? It's like, oh, that could have been 20 minutes me working on my project or working on my goal. And then that kind of grounds you and focuses you. So instead of,
mhm,
it takes you out of the kind of framework of constantly digesting or consuming things to actually start building. It's like, okay, well, instead of me just letting life happen to me, I'm just going to sit here and just,
mhm.
take everything in. As you know, I'm going to start building and creating. And I think I found that kind of frame of mind very good at helping focus, because it's like I'm
Yeah.
working, I work hard, and then I'm doing this, and I have these goals I'm trying to achieve, and it helps me
Yeah.
optimize my time.
That's awesome. I think about when you brought up this point earlier that was like when you just stop moving entirely and you think about where you're at and which direction you want to go, um, it can be much more efficient in regard to time when you're doing this in a proverbial manner. You're, instead of pursuing a goal per se, you're thinking about what goals do I want to pursue. um, it's much better to do that and not move anywhere for a little while than run headlong as fast as you can in the wrong direction, because you're going to have to, you know, stop eventually, reevaluate, and turn around and go back the way you came. It's you there are multiple currencies in the world. One of them is time, and investing your time in one thing is the opportunity cost of doing that is investing your time in another way. So um, I think that it's really, really important about, to be intentional about how we invest our time and why we would say no. And so, kind of circling back to the whole point of this topic is like, I should have said no to that meeting, right? But it was really the task that I was equipped to do, and, with my brain is equipped to do it, but my situation, it will cause me to become a bottleneck everywhere else. And one thing I find personally, I am rather compelled. So I screw up. I'm not perfect. I screw up all the time with time commitments that I shouldn't have or whatever. And I notice something that when I feel like somebody will, it's hard to, I've never really put this into words before, but when I feel like somebody is, not getting with the program, like I feel like whether that's in business or in life or whatever, I feel compelled to talk to them more and to, um, encourage them and try to bring them along so that they end up, um, eventually getting with the program, right? So like, I'll use an example that's kind of outside of business, because we already know that I tried to do that with one client that was, getting shaky in month 4 and whatever. It's like, well, you need to just give it the time. It's what I should have said. Like, just give it time. It'll work. Just trust the process. See these numbers. Everything looks like it's going well. And if they wouldn't get with the program, then I should probably have just allowed that to happen. I would have had so much more time. But so I'll use a different example: jujitsu. When somebody comes in and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to do this," and they're like, "Well, but I don't want to do the warm up, or instead of doing cartwheels, I'll just stand and watch, or whatever." Instead of trying to do some other movement that that we suggest that they could do instead, they're like, "Oh, I'll just like do nothing." They'll leave early, and they don't really they'll stop like in the middle of where it's like the instructor shows something, and it's like, okay, here, now you guys do the move. They'll do it like once or twice, and then they'll talk, and then like a few months later they're like, why do I suck at this? Like, I'm not getting any better, and they get frustrated. I oftentimes will take people like that and say, oh, well, you really need to do this, and oh, if you just learned this particular technique. It has nothing really to do with that. It's that you're not investing yourself. And, I really, what I should really be doing as an instructor myself in this sport, I should be focused on the people that are trying hard, that are giving
Mhm.
their time. Those are the people that are deserving of time. And while, there's totally room for people that are, not doing their best and goofing off and whatnot, like those people can learn to get with the program. I don't think that it's right that I would prioritize those people over the people who are really investing themselves and trying hard. I think those people are the ones that should get our attention. Um, and I'll use one more example. So there was this client that um, was like a hair salon that I was running ads for a hair salon, and they actually left for like 2 months. The business owner left for 2 months and put their daughter in charge, and their daughter had no clue about anything. Probably one of the worst people you could put in charge of this business when the business owner's gone.
They think that being the boss means you're shouting at everybody and you can tell them what to do.
Yeah,
Get a
but
bit of a power trip.
right, but they had no idea what was going on in the business. Like I could have told them anything about ads and they would have been like, okay. But then they would talk to their mom, which is the business owner, and then the mom would call me from like a foreign country super angry. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what is happening here with communication? And because I'm like trying to fix problems and other things while she's gone for several months. And I found myself trying to talk to this daughter, like to be really encouraging, like I'm your number one fan kind of thing. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm like working to curry favor with a person who's totally clueless right now so that the mom won't yell at me. It's kind of what was happening. It's like, why am I doing this? I just need to focus on like doing a good job with the ads and other things like that. And I, I, I what can I control? I can't control what this person says, or the fact that they're clueless and they're like, oh, I don't know what's happening with the ads. I don't know if we've had any calls this week. It's like, yeah, it's because you weren't in the place of business this week, so you wouldn't know. But she's saying things like that, and it's like, oh my goodness, like I want her to have a positive, to like frame me positively to her, the business owner mom. But I realized like I was spending so much energy on that it just was not a good use of time either. And it caused stress, it caused bottlenecks and other things that were really quite unnecessary. I had so many extra phone calls with them, and it was a very similar situation to me saying yes to this. And so I think sometimes your yes isn't an actual yes, I will do this event, I will do this, I will make this commitment, but it's what are you giving your time to? When you're saying yes to things, you have the same 24 hours in a day that I have and that, Elon Musk has and that Steve Jobs had and whatever. But like, what are we saying yes to with our time? How can we improve that so that you're wasting less of it? Because you can't get it back. You watch 20 minutes of YouTube. I hope you built fond memories from that, because you can't get that 20 minutes back. You could have spent 20 minutes, building a rocket to go to Mars. I don't know. Um, or more realistically for us, working on the project that is going to make you successful on Kickstarter, or GameFound, right? Like we need to spend our time purposefully. And so that's kind of maybe the, coming full circle, what has been really on my mind this week. So, you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to add?
I feel that anything that is worth doing is going to be difficult. It's going to take time and effort. And this is something that grounds my commitment to do certain things, is knowing that whatever I put my hand to, it's going to require blood, sweat, and tears. And if I'm going to do it right, I'm going to have to do it to the best of my ability. And it's going to take effort. I feel that if it doesn't require sweat, that it's either not worth doing or it's immoral, right? So like stealing is easy, and there's, you can get the benefits of working without actually, working. And that's kind of what I mean by immoral. So I think that also helps ground what you say yes to, is understanding that no matter what you say yes to, if it's worth doing and if it's just, or that it's good, there's going to be blood, sweat, and tears, no matter how you kind of, put it. It's going to be something that you're probably not going to want to do at some point. You'd rather be sleeping or eating ice cream or something, but it's going to be something that's worth doing. And I think that's what kind of motivates me to kind of be diligent and keep at it, and to work hard, because you kind of approach it with this attitude. Yes, everything that's worth doing is hard. Going to the gym is hard, but it's worth doing because you're going to have more energy. You're going to, be stronger, and whatnot. But, you have to have that kind of mentality to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with relaxing or taking a break. The me time thing, like there's nothing inherently wrong with any of it. But I think, everything in moderation. And when we go to excess, that's where we start to, where other parts of our life either get stunted or fall apart, or, just, you know, So anyway, hope you guys found this discussion insightful. It's definitely been on the top of my head, and I'm glad that I'm able to get all these thoughts out. So let us know what you think in the Crowdfunding Nerds community. We're going to have Robot Richard send us on out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.
Hey, Crowdfunding Nerds, it's Andrew Lowen, and I wanted to introduce you guys to the Crowdfunding Nerds Academy. If you don't know, we have a do-it-yourself course system that will teach you how to build, excite, and prepare a crowd to fund you on your launch day, and that is our goal. I have used these systems to help raise over $30 million for tabletop campaigns, over 200 tabletop crowdfunding campaigns since 2019. I've generated over $100 million through e-commerce sales using these processes. These courses teach you how to replicate our results. They're made for the small creator. Over 150 of those people were first-time creators. These courses contain hundreds of hours of podcast discussions and tons of details that are almost impossible to find on the internet. And they have been distilled into concentrated courses that you can absorb quickly. They are designed to generate results. We hold nothing back. Visit crowdfundingnerds.com/academy to learn more, or just Google search Crowdfunding Nerds Academy.